When making a sequel, there are two extremes on a spectrum that works can fall between. You can take risks and make big changes, risking alienating an audience that originally enjoyed what you put out. Or you can change a very small amount, if any, to play it safe, but compromise some artistic integrity in the process. One approach isn't necessarily better or worse than the other. We can all talk about how Call of Duty or Marvel movies are the same thing every year, but when they connect with so many people and get millions of eyes on them, who are we to say that this is the worst way of doing things? On the other hand, sometimes you can have artists completely misunderstand what people loved about what they made before, and even go as far to cheapen their previous work. What's that doing on the screen? Get it out of here. Please. But you can also have great works that perfectly close off the stories and themes of a series. For example, Ocarina of Time was a coming-of-age story with mechanics and themes relating to the passage of time, and how the world and our responsibilities change as it goes on. Majora's Mask perfectly closes off this concept with themes and mechanics relating to time later when we face the inevitability of death. What do we do when our time runs out? How do we impact the world when we are alive? And how does the world change when we're gone? It's always a balancing act for developers to find where they want their game to lie between these two extremes. How can they make a game that changes enough to be different while staying true to the game that came before it? Well, in this regard, Left 4 Dead 2 got off to a pretty rocky start. With after being announced at E3 2009, a not insignificant amount of people felt that the release of a sequel so soon after the first game would lead to a rushed product, especially since this wasn't something Valve was known for doing. Some players saw the change in tone and aesthetics from the first game as being untrue to the intentions behind its predecessor, and that the release of a sequel would mean pulling of support from the first game. This led to the infamous Left 4 Dead 2 boycott, with this image being generated during it, which honestly was kind of a banger. In response, Valve asked the community to trust them a little, stating that with all the changes they wanted to make, it would be a lot easier to release an entirely new game than to release it as DLC for the first. They had to create some cutoff point of where they wanted expansion content to end and a sequel to begin. They actually ended up flying out two of the more prominent members of the boycott to playtest the game to assure them that they were listening and wanted to deliver a good product, with the two ending up feeling that they thought the game was well made. This show of confidence isn't something you usually see from developers, flying out your harshest critics to show them that you know what you're doing and you know what they want from a sequel. It actually led to Gabe Newell stating in a GameSpot interview that people that were a part of the boycott Steam group were actually pre-ordering the game at higher rates compared to other owners of Left 4 Dead. As the release got closer and the promises of continuing to support the first game were fulfilled, as much as you can call releasing Crash Course support, the boycott slowly dissipated. So let's look into Left 4 Dead 2 and see why Valve had such confidence that this game would be the sequel that would be loved by even its harshest detractors. Left 4 Dead 2 released on November 17th, 2009, and so what changed? The biggest change to the gameplay was by far the introduction of the new 3 Special Infected. First up is the Charger, a tanky Special Infected that would do exactly as the name implies. Charge at the survivors, grab the first one they run into, sending everyone else in its path flying before finishing their charge. They then slam the person grabbed into the ground until the Charger is killed, or the survivor is. What's different about the Charger is that they're totally immune to being shoved and have to be killed or stumbled by an explosion to get them off of somebody. There was also the introduction of the Spitter, which also doesn't have a name that leaves much to the imagination. The Spitter spits acid at the survivors, creating a pool of acid that does damage over time, where when employed properly can block off paths, move survivors out of a certain position, or be used when a survivor is being grabbed by another Special Infected or incapacitated to deal extra damage.
Oh, I'm fucked. I'm so fucked.
Lastly, you had the Jockey. The Jockey would run at a survivor, hopping on them and riding them away from the group. Unlike other Special Infected, as soon as the survivor was in-capped, the Jockey would actually get off of them, since you know the not being able to stand thing. There is also the introduction of Wandering Witches during the Daylight campaigns. These witches cover their eyes and walk around, not being angered by flashlights, since the sun is shining all around them. But the Wandering Witches have the potential possibility of coming around at a time when you don't have anywhere to go to avoid her, giving you less control in some circumstances when she shows up. A new class of Infected was also created, the Uncommon Infected. These would spawn in certain campaigns or levels. These enemies weren't super difficult to kill or anything, but they did add fun little tweaks to the gameplay every campaign. The most significant change on the survivor side were the new secondaries, specifically the melee weapons. The melee weapons offered much needed close range versatility for the survivors, coming in clutch when you had a horde coming at you and needed to push through. There was also the introduction of the chainsaw that would deal a ton of damage in melee range, but would run out of gas over time, leaving you with just a pistol when you ran out. Speaking of pistols, in addition to the return of handguns from the first game, you had the Magnum pistol that had a lower magazine capacity, but would deal a lot more damage, making it super useful for expert runs since it would one-shot common infected at range without using ammo. The new secondaries gave options to have different playstyles within the group. You could use the melee weapon to cover your bases up close if you were using an assault rifle, the Magnum pistol if you were using a shotgun to give you some range, the chainsaw if you were using rifles and things got a bit too spicy when a horde got to you or a smoker shows up, or the pistols if you decide you don't want to have fun. You also had the introduction of new primary weapons as well. For the shotgun category, the Chrome and Combat shotguns offered more accuracy, fewer pellets, and a smaller spread than their counterparts that were brought over from the previous game. With rifles, you had the introduction of the combat rifle, which was slightly less accurate than the hunting rifle, but had double the ammo capacity. In the machine gun category, you saw the silent submachine gun, boasting less accuracy but higher damage than the unsuppressed submachine gun from the first game. You might say, that doesn't really make sense. So the assault rifles introduced the desert rifle that did slightly more damage per bullet than the M16, but was burst fire and had lower DPS. It also had the highest accuracy of all the tier 2 machine guns as well as the highest magazine capacity at 60. The godly AK-47 had a low fire rate, low accuracy, and 40 bullets per mag, but had significantly more damage per bullet and the highest DPS of all the assault rifles if used properly. There was also the introduction of special weapons and attachments with the grenade launcher and laser sights. The grenade launcher created an explosion that would stumble anything it didn't kill with the exception of tanks or chargers, and couldn't have its ammo replenished. The laser sights improved the accuracy of your weapon, but were hard to come by, and sometimes you would find them when you had a weapon you didn't really care for. But one thing that's cool about the game is that it kind of forces you into that decision to either use a weapon you aren't crazy about that has increased accuracy, or ditch it for a weapon you like more, which is a cool way of nudging players into experimenting with other weapons and playstyles. You could also find explosive and incendiary ammo around the map that would take up your health pack slot, and could be deployed to give each team member a mag of the ammo of the type that you picked up. There were also some minor balancing changes for ammo capacity as well. Shotguns went from having 128 shells in reserve to only 90, since in the first game you would pretty much never run out of ammo if you had a shotgun. This change was probably for the better. There was also the increase of reserve ammo for SMGs from 480 to 650, I guess to balance out the high fire rate, but even in Left 4 Dead 1 I never really noticed this being a problem. Next up is the introduction of the new items. In addition to the incendiary and explosive ammo, you could also find defibrillators that would take up the health pack slot, but would allow players to revive dead teammates. In the pill slot, you had the adrenaline shot that gave half of the temporary health that pills did, but gave you a movement speed boost, stopped you from being slowed down by being in water or getting hit by common infected, and allowed you to take actions faster, such as pouring gas cans, reloading, or healing. However, during this effect, it can be hard to hear which direction a certain sound is coming from as your senses tunnel. They can also be passed from player to player, just like the pain pills. For the grenades, the bile bomb was introduced, drawing the infected to where it was thrown, and even making them attack any infected hit by it initially. You're the boomer now. There were also some improvements to the AI director, with the devs increasing the amount of things that it could do. In addition to having more items and infected to pick from to spawn in certain places, the AI director could also change level layouts as well. In certain levels, the AI director would change the path through which the players would navigate or block off certain sections entirely, adding extra replayability to the levels. Lastly, the other game modes such as survival and versus were back. There was also the introduction of the new scavenge game mode, where you would fill up a generator with gas cans while the enemy team tried to stop you. Realism mode was added to the game as well, where character outlines were disabled, item outlines only appeared when you were close, the witch instantly killed, and there were damage penalties based on where you shot the zombies if you wanted an extra challenge added to your game. So that was pretty much all of the changes, other than removing the tank's hair. Oh my god! So let's take a look at the campaigns and add-ons that Left 4 Dead 2 has to offer to see why Valve had such confidence in their end product and what we can learn about what makes a sequel. While the intro sequence to Left 4 Dead 1 was a full scene introducing you to its mechanics and characters, the introduction to the second game is cut up like a movie trailer, introducing you to its characters, new mechanics, and previewing the ride that the game is about to take you on. The intro starts with Coach leading the group to an abandoned store, with him reading a government order while the rest of the group searches through the place. The scene cuts to Nick immediately taking advantage of the situation to open a register, which clearly appears to be not the first one he's gained access to. Or the second. You see Ellis open up a cage with some weapons inside to his childlike wonder, immediately cutting over to him handing a pistol to Rochelle and her pushing it away, contrasting her as being one of the more level-headed members of the group, with her planning a route to evacuation. Coach finishes reading the government order, makes a remark, and crumples it up while biting into a chocolate bar, showing him as a no-bullshit, charismatic kind of guy with a love for food that would probably be a football coach. It ends with Ellis being decked out in weapons to a comical degree and being presented as a young guy being clearly in over his head dropped into an extreme situation. This is all shown within the first 30 seconds of the intro, with the door being kicked open to a badass sequence showing the campaigns you'll be facing, as well as the uncommon infected and the new specials. The game cuts to Nick being an asshole to Coach about the helicopter being made of chocolate as they go up the stairs, but not in a way that makes him seem unlikable. In fact, as the helicopters are flying away and everybody is freaking out, Nick is the first one to accept things not going to plan, most likely because of his past as a criminal, showing his positive contributions to the group despite who he was before the virus came around, with the game cutting back to the sequence and Ellis being grabbed by every single special infected possible to show that he's going to be sort of a comic relief character of this game, and that you can't shove the charger. It does a good job as well to show that this game is about teamwork, with the survivors helping each other up from the ground and from hanging off ledges. The ending scene shows that you need to shove the riot zombies to hit their back and that the chainsaw can cut the smoker's tongue. As the elevator goes down, everyone helps Ellis up and Rochelle gives him some words of encouragement before it hits the bottom floor. Just to solidify things, all the other characters are confidently facing the front as the elevator hits the ground, while Ellis is looking around nervously before steeling himself to join the rest of the group in their determination to survive. The opening manages to pack so much about the game and their characters in the less than 3-minute runtime, and gets you hyped for what you're about to play while doing so. Dead Center kicks off with our survivors on the hotel roof trying to flag down rescue. But it's too late, the helicopters are gone and you're left to fend for yourself. Left for dead, as it were. What's interesting about this campaign is that you don't start off with a primary weapon. The game gives you some melee weapons and pistols to introduce the players to new types of secondaries that they can play around with. You move down the stairs to the hallway of the hotel building. The structure of this level is designed specifically so that the new special infected can shine. The long halls are there so that you have no room to avoid the charger besides ducking into a side room if one is even nearby. You also have the windows for them to charge you out of as well. The side rooms and ledges give good cover for the jockey to grab survivors and ride them behind. Your team has to go around so many corners before they finally have line of sight to take the jockey out from.
Okay, let's just move through the level, my dude.
Your mom.
Your mom.
The halls and doorways are also the perfect size for spitters to create an acid puddle to block off your path. As you move through the halls, you see more parts of the building up in flames with the smoke coming through doors. The game takes this opportunity to show off the uncommon infected through its level design. Remember those hazmat guys that took a bit more damage to kill than the other zombies? Well, turns out they're also immune to fire. You get to the elevator where the survivors introduce themselves to each other as you make your way to the bottom floor, which is up in flames and the smoke clouds your vision. As you open the door, you find a silent submachine gun on the floor and defend yourself as a horde approaches through the cover of the smoke. After you find a break, you vault through the kitchen, get to the lobby, and find the next safe room. The first thing you notice about Left 4 Dead 2 is how much tighter you have to play than the previous games. What I mean by that is that with the new special infected and the increased amount of commons you see, you're much more heavily punished for not being mindful of your position. At any point you can have a jockey ride someone away, a charger hit the group that's too close together, or a spitter take advantage of someone being held up by some commons or another special infected that's even slightly split off from the group. There's so much more that you have to be aware of and think about. There's so many more interactions and strategies that can be employed against you than the first game, and you have to be ready for that. The side rooms, long hallways, tight corners, and smoke obstructing your vision all work together to give the special infected an edge and show you what they're capable of. This is the perfect introduction level to a game. It does a seamless job of introducing the new mechanics, enemies, and items that you'll have to use all in this short hotel section. Yeah, what I had to say about this one level is already almost longer than what I had to say about all of Dead Air in the last video. This might be a long one. Level 2 starts off with the survivors deciding to head down to a gun store from the safe room. You move through a parking lot, past a medical tent, down to a descending street. One thing that's cool to see in the level design is just some bits and pieces glimpsing into how the world responded to the infection. It totally makes sense to see the medical tents and signs telling people where to evacuate to. It's also around this point that you'll probably notice the hazmat zombies consistently drop the bio bombs. Adding a bit more to the world building too. If people taking all these precautions to not get infected while working with the virus manage to turn, it shows you how infectious and dangerous it truly is to humanity. All this makes the world feel a lot more lived in than the first game. You move down to a breaker room through the streets and the overpass, bringing you to a water pipe building thing.
Okay, back up. Oh my god, Rochelle, for fuck's sake.
And your first set of tier 2 weapons. You jump down onto a truck, bringing you to some stairs that lead to a fenced off bridge that leads to the gun store.
I mean, you when I.
Oh my god, he's put out in the voice chat for that.
You talk to the gun store owner and he says he'll give you the guns and clear a path to the evac station in the mall in exchange for you grabbing cola from the store for him. In this part, the game lets you experiment around with all the new guns and items that you can find through the game and gives you laser sights as well. They also hand you some health packs so you can take your time a little bit. You exit the building and move your way over to the grocery store.
Eggs 99 cents per dozen. Imagine,
Bread,
remember
2
the
for 1
days?
everyday value.
2 for 1
Yeah.
bread.
$4
$3.99 beer
six-pack?
6-pack.
Wow.
Bro, this is a different age, my guy.
I want to live
This game
here.
is from 2009. Holy fuck.
$3.99 6-pack.
As you open the doors, the alarm goes off, having you rush to the store to grab the cola and fight your way through the hordes of infected. You deliver the cola through the door slot and the shop owner blows up the truck in the way. This is definitely one of the more ridiculous crescendo events, and I think that's pretty intentional. The game wants to start letting you know that this game is going to take a bit of a tone shift from the first game. Left 4 Dead 2 is going to take itself a bit less seriously than Left 4 Dead 1 did. While it might turn away some of the players that liked the first game for how somber it was, the shift in tone allows the devs to be a bit more creative with the kinds of crescendo events they implement, and be a bit wackier with the kind of scenarios they put you into. After the way is clear, you move past some more medical tents and to the mall entrance. At the start of the next level, the survivors comment on how quiet it seems at the mall where there's supposed to be a CETA evac. You move through the barricaded up lobby, up the escalator, and through the gate. You take some more escalators down through a food court area up to the back rooms. No, not those. At this point, depending on how the AI director is feeling, you can either be led to the bottom floor or a toy store a floor up. Moving through the door or breaking the glass in the case of the toy store spawn sets off an alarm that you have to run to stop the hordes. After fighting your way up to the top floor, you hit the switch and stop the alarm, just like you should hit those like and subscribe buttons. You move through some more back rooms, down to an area in the mall that's under construction, and up the stairs to the safe room. This level felt a bit dull and repetitive, but it's also a good way of leaving the player to their own devices after introducing all of the new enemies, items, and mechanics that they'll be dealing with in this game. A nice big area to play around in that's not too complicated. Or it's just a boring level, you can kind of take your pick on that one. The last level starts you moving through some dimly lit hallways to the atrium, contrasting with the sun shining brightly through the windows, giving a small sense of relief from being stuck in that dark mall the last level. This sense of relief is short-lived as the survivors discuss their options forward and settle on gassing up the Jimmy Gibbs stock car and driving out of the mall to New Orleans. You also see Ellis's mechanical knowledge come in here as he knows about how the car show set up these vehicles and suggests the idea initially. This is where you encounter the new finale of grabbing gas cans and filling the thing as infected go after you. What's new about this type of finale is that you set the pace of it. It can either be finished before you get the first tank, or it can be full on endless waves if it takes too long to get the gas cans, or you make the mistake of accidentally shooting them, having to go back and grab more. It's a fun spin on the finale formula and adds variety to the gameplay of Left 4 Dead. It also adds some skill expression and can lead to some fun moments like deciding that taking the stairs back with the last gas can will take too long, and just jumping down to have your team help you up to get to rescue. After filling the rest of the gas, you get in the car and leave Savannah behind you. Dead Center is the perfect introduction to the game. It starts off by putting you in situations where you have to deal with the new infected where they shine the most, and then introduces you to the new weapons and items that the game has to offer while showing off the new tone and world building. It showcases the new crescendos and finales in a simple and easy to understand map, and it does the job right. The campaign feels lived in, with areas being barricaded off, medical tents lining population centers, and even posters advertising 75% off blowout sales, with people trying to get as many resources as they can before the world falls apart. Dark Carnival takes place after Dead Center, with the survivors driving up to a highway blocked with vehicles and have to leave Jimmy Gibbs' stock car behind to walk the rest of the way. You weave in between cars and move along the road, bringing you to an underpass.
I love the interstate. The in-between states.
The intrastate.
The inside of the state.
Man, I love living inside of states. You move over the advertising board to a motel where you restock a bit before heading down to the gully. Oh my god, can we not troll each other right now?
It appears as though I don't have a choice. I'm fucking dying.
You threw a propane tank at me. What the
Bruh.
Well,
What are we
what are you trying to
doing?
shake it, Reed?
Walking down the river brings you to a hill that leads to a safe room in the Whispering Oaks theme park, with the classic alarmed car at the end. He's gonna shoot the fucking car, I know he is.
He fucking shot the car.
He crouched so he had better aim, so he could shoot the car more efficiently.
I love how this level manages to make a seamless transition of so many environments. It completely makes sense how the highway moves into the cheap motel built right next to a gully, which leads to the river, which leads to the theme park. It all works so well and comes together and makes such a good first level. Level 2 starts off at the gates of Whispering Oaks. Bro, like, don't give me cock, like, don't do that.
Don't do
Left 4 Dead
that.
2 Freaky Edition.
Gone sexual.
No, don't give me cock.
No, don't
Dude,
bust it down
stop.
sexual style. Don't be goated with the
Okay.
sauce.
Don't stick
now
out your
it's-
yacht for the Rizzler.
Okay, now it's weird.
Moving through some stands, past a shooting range that you can actually play. There are also clowns that you can find in this level that will bring infected around them to their position with their shoes squeaking. You find your tier 2 weapons on a table over by the concessions and walk through the storage building. You get the Jesus hand and walk down the ramp to Kittyland. Behind Kittyland, you find a back alley that brings you to the roof to the silly slide. You move to the merry-go-round that has to be started to get through the gate, bringing the infected to you. After rushing your way to the shutdown lever, you arrive at the safe room in the Tunnel of Love. Once again, super diverse level, well-paced, and cohesive. The third level brings you through the walkway to the indoor river.
Look at that funky little guy. Look at him go.
Yeah.
Moving through the river leads to the maintenance room, where you drop down the hole in the ceiling back to the cramped tunnel. When you finally get out at the end, you arrive in an open area with a building and a truck that have some supplies in them as a helicopter flies overhead. The way forward is through the roller coaster, but when you start it, it sounds the alarm. You run along the tracks to get to the safe room. This is definitely one of the rougher crescendo events in the game. At any point, you can be charged off, pulled by a smoker, ridden by a jockey, stalled by a spitter, or even sometimes get a tank and can lose progress with even a small misstep. You can be very easily punished here, but if you know the spots where you're safer and the spots where you need to rush past that put you in a bad position, you can make it to the end and hit the lever without too many disasters. The fourth level starts with you at another fairground area that runs through the bumper cars. You make your way through more of the fairground and can actually stop to play whack-a-mole if you want. Past the benches and the tables, you find some barns that you run through and over the roofs to get to the gates of the entrance of the Midnight Riders concert. When you open the gates, you attract a horde before the doors open up. As they do, you make a mad dash to the end.
No rope left behind.
Oh, what the fuck? They spawned a witch right in the safe room.
What the fuck?
We're playing too well.
If you don't rock and stone, you ain't coming home.
Alright, get the fuck in the safe room. Bruh. The finale starts off at the loading area of the venue, with the survivors having the idea of starting the concert to signal the helicopter. As somebody that's worked as a stagehand, the starting area looks like a back area you'd actually see at a venue when you're loading in and out the equipment. Bro, Valve actually put a bathroom in this level. Did they predict Skibbity Toilet?
The fuck up.
I'm gonna block you.
You get to the stage and hit the lights before you hit the button to start the concert. He's got the jerry can. Can we not do this? Reed! Reed! Get out of the fire! Get out of the fire, Reed!
Keegan did this, and he's gonna have to live with the consequences.
Oh my god!
You literally
Oh
set
my
yourself
god,
on fire over there.
I'm in a team full of fucking inters.
Hey, not me! I'm
Except
a good
you.
sport.
You went.
Begins the
you've
one that
not
did it.
even-
All right,
you
we're
didn't
starting this
even
before
play,
you
like,
guys
the
kill
last
each other
level.
fucking harder.
Yeah, because I went to get ice cream.
The music starts, the pyrotechnics go off, and it's time to make a stand.
1, 2, 3, 4.
You fight through the waves as the music blasts and the tanks come in on the guitar solos. The music is actually good too, and it sounds like a band that would actually be popular. There are fireworks and pyrotechnics that you can set off to defend yourself, towers to snipe from, and equipment to take cover behind as you blast through the zombies. At the end of the second song, the helicopter drops by, having you make a mad dash to it as the horde and the tank are on your heels, bringing you to rescue. Honestly, Dark Carnival is the best campaign in all of Left 4 Dead. There's so many environments that are strung together in such a cohesive manner. There are fun Easter eggs for you to enjoy that the devs didn't have to put in there. It has some of the most creative and epic events in Finale. Everything about this is so much fun and works as reassurance to the fans of the first game that this is still the game that they love. Dark Carnival was made to be familiar to fans of the first game, but firm in its commitment to be different. It's familiar in that it takes place at night, has a cohesive level design that fans expect, has a classic car alarm, and the finale where you hold out for a helicopter rescue, but it still commits to being a big change in tone from the first game. This campaign is silly, loud, and doesn't take itself too seriously at all. It's as if the devs were saying, we know what you loved about the first game, and we're gonna give it to you. But there are gonna be some changes here, so strap in. Swamp Fever starts off with the survivors camped out in a train car after the helicopter crashed when the pilot turned. Similar to another campaign that we are not going to talk about. Anyway, you move through the street and past the gas station to arrive at a shantytown over by the lake.
I'm gonna keep that blood. The baby car replaces coach.
You call the ferry and fight off the horde that's called while taking care not to be close enough to the water that the infected can throw you to the gators. When you get across the ferry, you come to a swamp with a wooden walkway path for you to follow lined with shacks. You learn that people have been resorting to living here in these conditions to escape the infection, but clearly, it didn't work. One thing that's interesting about these new environments is how it also changes up which items are good and how you need to play around them. You can light the tank on fire, but if he goes in the water, it goes out. You can fight him where there isn't water, but he can also punch you into the river and kill you instantly. To survive this campaign, you're gonna need to adapt to the environment.
What the fuck?
Oh my god.
Alright, follow me.
Oh
Oh, I
god.
see this.
Hell yeah.
He's got a fucking cat on his back. What the fuck? Come on. Watch out for the charger. I'm not gonna snow.
The baby car, get him quick. Here's it. My savior, the baby car.
Let's go. Let's try the baby.
Oh my god.
shit.
After going through the walkway, you move over some planks and get to the safe room. The second level starts off with you moving down a river up to a hill with more swamp. There's a dead pilot hanging from his parachute in a tree. At this point, you'll notice the mudmen that partially blind you on a hit. You move along some rundown shacks to a dock with some supplies on it, bringing you to a crashed airplane. When you open it, it flies off, bringing a horde to you. You move off the wing over to a big shack full of supplies, through more swamp, up to a road that leads to a safe room in the village.
Oh my god.
Alright.
No.
What the fuck?
Yes.
Let's go.
Oh.
I have to look like up and to the right of you.
Wait 1 second, let me go over to you. 1 second. 1 second. Wait.
Family
Hey, let
photo.
me tap.
Everybody line up.
No.
The third level starts in the village where the surrounding shacks hold some supplies that you can use before you head down to see a pile of corpses of the infected humans and animals.
Hey, can you get your fucking
No, goddammit,
porcelain
that's not
out of my
what
way?
the fuck.
This is a self-inflicted porcelain on your part, my friend.
You're brought to a lakeside shanty where afterwards you have to make your way to a tree-lined path that leads to another village where you have to lower a plank that brings you to the rooftop while a horde comes after you. This part is super cool though, fighting the infected in shacks as they're breaking down from either your bullets, infected attacking them, or a combination of both. It adds a super dynamic feeling to the encounter. Afterwards, you keep walking and arrive at the safe room. At the last level, you exit the safe room to see the sun rising over a small town, which you walk over the last bit of swamp to get to. After getting supplies from the nearby houses, you make your way to a mansion overlooking a plantation. Next to the wooden doors, you find a radio where you call for rescue from a man named Virgil, who has you wait while he comes over and gets you. It's your job to hold out until he arrives, fighting wave after wave and even fighting 2 tanks at once at the end before he explodes the doors and you make a mad dash for the boat. Swamp Fever is a pretty fun campaign. It's definitely not on the level of the other 2, but it's still a nice change of environment that you have to strategize around. Molotovs become a bit less useful and you have to rely a bit more on bile bombs and be aware of your positioning for special infected throwing you in the bog. If you have to run away, you need to either have adrenaline on you or make sure you're in a dry area with a lot of space so you don't get slowed down by the ankle-deep water. However, the campaign did feel a little bit repetitive, with environments blending together a bit and not giving much of a unique identity to some of the levels. You could take the perspective that this puts the player in the mindset of traveling through a never-ending swamp where everything looks the same, bogging you down, as it were. But I don't know, it feels like one of those design decisions where you get what they're going for and it works for that, but it also works out to be less fun than the other campaigns in the process. I think they probably made the right call only making this one 4 chapters. It's still a really fun campaign and super creative and designed well, it's just that the first 2 set the bar really high. Hard Rain takes place right after Swamp Fever, with Virgil stopping to drop the survivors off to grab some gas for the boat. After he leaves, the group realizes that they also forgot the gun bag that had the flares to signal Virgil back with. It's a cute way to explain why you start this campaign with only a pistol, even though other campaigns don't really show why you only have basic equipment at the start. Over by the truck, there's some more guns and melee weapons before you go through the Burger Tank restaurant and follow the sign past the street. You move through the neighborhood, past the playground, and are brought to a garage sale with some supplies for you. Why do they have military weapons at a garage sale? Who knows? It's Mississippi, like anything happens down there. You'll also notice the construction zombies that are immune to pipe bombs because of their ear protection. Moving through the house brings you to a street leading to the safe room. The first level is pretty basic, but don't worry, it's not the only time you'll be seeing it. In the safe room, you're introduced to the main mechanic of this campaign. Usually the survivors will comment on how you'll be coming back through, so you have to be careful which supplies you take through the level, because they won't be there when you get back. As you exit the building, you see a banner warning you about witches, but you need the gas, so you move forward through to the sugar mill. You move through the yard under construction to the mill, which sits collapsed and in ruin, being exposed to the infected and the elements for so long without maintenance. You see broken walls and rubble all around. Something big definitely happened here. It's at this point, you're introduced to the main mechanic of this level, the insane amount of wandering witches all around you. You need to watch where you shoot, look where you're going, and probably don't throw pipe bombs blindly in the distance. You're brought to the more intact part of the factory, and about at this point, you'll realize that the ammo drops in this campaign are much more scarce than they were in others. You'll have to pay more attention to conserving the resources you have. This mindset that the game puts you in matches up perfectly with the rain that starts to roll in. The storm is coming, and you need to get ready. You move through the truck yard to the cold, concrete main building where you call a rickety old elevator to the bottom, bringing a horde to you. After getting off the elevator, the sugarcane field blocks your vision as you wander blindly through, staying away from the witches and the special infected waiting to ambush you in the process. You make it to the safe room. Now that you've grabbed the gas, you just have to make it back the way you came. That shouldn't be so hard, should it? You trudge through the now flooded sugar field up to the elevator. The storm has arrived. Throughout the level, you'll go through periods where the rain rolls in, impairing your vision and bringing a horde to your location. You know what probably damaged the factory now. When this happens, you'll need to find cover and get close to your team, but not too close. When you get down from the mill, you move through the ankle-deep water and up the silos that you passed before. You're brought back to the intact catwalks, which keep you less vulnerable than being down below in the water. One interaction that I got that was super fun was being dragged off the catwalk down to the water by the smoker as the storm rolled in. forcing my team to come down and protect me while fighting off a horde. One of my favorite things to see in games is when they allow different kinds of experiences to happen. I'm not ragging on scripted sequences that are designed to be epic and awesome, but there's something unique about a game that puts pieces in place to have certain events happen in certain ways. At this point, any number of things could have happened. It could have just been a boomer spawn. A horde could have not spawned at this point, but everything came together in just the right way to create this unique moment. This isn't something that the game made for you. This was a moment you had for yourself with the mechanics that were present throughout the entire game. This is what I love about Left 4 Dead. It doesn't force things, it just sets things up to happen or not happen, depending on the circumstances at the time. You move over some pipes to get through the factory, staying on the high ground to brave the elements. You move back through the construction zone, through the building, to the safe room that has your remaining supplies. You start the next level coming back to the flooded town, staying on the roofs to be away from the water as the hurricane rages on. You move to a porch light that you saw from before back to the garage sale. You move through the streets and the buildings, making your way back to the playground from before, finally making your way to the safe house. In the final level, the survivors come up with the idea of turning on the burger tank sign to signal Virgil. Wading through the water, you switch it on and get ready for the hordes to come as the hurricane ravages the small town that nature wants back. You hold your own until Virgil comes back and you make your escape. Hard Rain is runner-up for my favorite campaign in this game. Just like Dead Air and Left 4 Dead 1, I don't think I appreciated Hard Rain for what it was until I ran through it again for this video. Even though it uses pretty much the same two levels, it manages to deploy them in a way that makes it fresh and interesting each time you go through. In Swamp Fever, the game changed which items were good through the environment and the water all around, which Hard Rain does in the later levels, but also it does it in the Sugar Mill. You don't want to shoot your guns blindly or throw a pipe bomb in the wrong spot, since you might alert a witch or two. The infected become just as much part of the environment as the water and the rain itself, with the infected working with the storm to ambush you at your most vulnerable. This is classic man versus nature. Ammo spawns are scarce, resources are scarce, you have to be careful with what you take with you, and what you don't. You have to change your tactics as the storm becomes more intense and adapt to the environment. Taking cover when you can, fighting out in the open when you have to. The game makes this campaign feel like a trudge in the best way possible. It makes you feel like you're braving the storm and coming out the other side exhausted and relieved. It's such a good campaign. The Parish starts off with the survivors dropped off in New Orleans, wishing the best to Virgil before they go in search of the military. You move from the dock to the streets where a toppled semi-truck blocks your path. You go up through the buildings and the bar to get through the back alleyways. You'll see the armored riot zombies in the streets that can only be hurt from behind. The alleyways bring you through a kitchen with a safe room on the other side of the street. Level 2 starts you off moving through a barricaded plaza in a park where you can go through a maze or around the open area to a gazebo. You exit to the overpass and find bodies lining the street to a checkpoint area with a door that will sound an alarm without clearance from the tower. You open the door and rush to the tower to hit the lever, exiting the area to see suitcases piled up and body bags filling the sidewalk. You exit to a filled bus depot. Clearly the evacuation plan didn't work out. Down the alleyway is the next safe room. You start level 3 camped out under the highway, moving past a barricade to a small neighborhood.
Then I go and download too many things, and then it breaks the game, and then I blame you.
Download like 50,000 Gooner mods.
Are they download?
Dude, I'm telling you,
My
the
kinda
fucking say what you want about the Gooners, but they keep the Steam Workshop alive. Like, I'm telling you what's up. Like,
Yeah,
there would
I
be
guess.
no Left 4 Dead without the Gooners, my guy. We'd be in a sad world. When you explore the suburb, you move through some burned and ransacked houses and exit to a sewer at the end of the street. You wade your way through the water and climb up the manhole to see a yard filled with cars, most of them being alarmed to draw a horde to you.
I like that.
Don't climb up just yet.
Oh,
Yeah. I guess that was a little too late.
then hey, watch out for that.
It's definitely a cool take on a crescendo event. It can be entirely avoided, or you could have a really bad time depending on how you play the game. You climb the ladder to a bridge where an ambulance sits with some supplies. You drop down and arrive at the cemetery, which has different layouts depending on how the AI director is feeling at the time. After navigating the maze, you finally make it to the safe room. Level 4 starts out with an aircraft flying over and bombing the city. You walk through the courtyard and are brought to a street, going through the restaurant down to an alleyway. When you go into the barricaded up building, you end up on the rooftops where you need to call a horde to move a float forward to create a path. You move through some barricaded buildings to the next street over and walk through the building down to the alleyway leading to the bridge safe room. The finale starts you at the bridge, calling the military over the radio for rescue, where you learn that you're immune. I mean, if that wasn't obvious already. They refer to you as a carrier and tell you that the only spot where they can rescue you is on the far end of the bridge. As you hit the button, the bridge slowly lowers in the most anxiety-inducing way possible before the steel ramp drops and you make a run for it. While you're running, you see the crashed convoy of buses of evacuees and semi-trucks most likely filled with supplies. It doesn't seem like many made it out, but there's no time to think about that. You rush over the bridge, grabbing every bit of supplies that are easily within reach. A tank shows up in the wreckage before you climb up an oil tanker to the lopsided section of the bridge. You drop down and run through some tents. The plane arrives and the cargo hold opens, with a tank that you have to navigate around or fight to get to rescue. After making your way through, you get in the plane, the cargo hold closes, and the bridge is destroyed. This is the best finale in the entire series. It's epic, anxiety-inducing, and you set the pace of it. The Parish does the most work out of any of the campaigns to tell a story through its level design. When you start in the outskirts of the town, you see barricades, vehicles stopped in the street, and posters warning about the virus. It seems like the least amount of measures were taken here, and it fell the fastest. As you move on, you see more and more checkpoints with bodies lining the ground. At one point, you see infected and non-infected alike shot dead when it was clear the military was getting overrun. They weren't able to evacuate as many people as they wanted, as evidenced by the myriad of buses sitting unattended. When the evacuation failed, you see how people sheltered and barricaded themselves in their homes, repurposing Mardi Gras floats as walkways to their safe houses. And you see where their homes were broken down by the infected, adding whoever wasn't killed to their ranks. When you hit the bridge, you see how grim the situation became. The virus spread past all of the measures that were taken, to the point where they even had to bomb the bridge to safety, while hundreds or even thousands of people were on it to control the situation. And even that wasn't enough. The game doesn't make it clear whether the situation was dire and the military reluctantly did what it had to do after taking all the necessary steps, or if they decided to not even take the tiniest chances and execute the smallest threat as it appeared, and brought down the hammer harder than it ever needed to, and the people revolted. It's left up to your interpretation what the details of the story were. You don't know if you'll be welcomed with open arms, or shot dead on sight when you get rescued. The passing released on April 22nd, 2010 is DLC, introducing a whole new campaign, game mode, and weapons. For the weapons, they added the belt gun as a high damage special weapon similar to the grenade launcher that couldn't have its ammo replenished, but dealt a ton of damage until you ran out. There was also the introduction of the golf club melee weapon that had a fast swing and a good range that could spawn around the map, and is one of the better melee weapons you can find. The Fallen Survivor was also another uncommon infected that you could run into. After being shot, the Fallen Survivor would run away from you, and if you managed to kill him, he would drop some supplies for you to pick up. They also added the mutation game mode. Have you ever wondered what the game would play like if you had a chainsaw that never ran out of gas, a belt gun that never ran out of ammo, or how much trouble you'd have if all the special infected were spitters and boomers that spawned at higher rates? Well, now you can with the rotating mutation game mode that adds a bunch of fun spins on normal gameplay. Okay, I'll never do that voice again. Most importantly though, it added a campaign that takes place between the events of Dead Center and Dark Carnival. The passing starts off with the survivors stopped at a bridge, talking to one of the survivors from the first game, if they're able to lower it and help them out. You're told that they can lower it if you go around the city to the other side. Time to get back to it. You move through a small park to a building complex, where you walk down the alley as the rain pours down. You walk up through an apartment building to a wedding where the bride is a witch that blocks your path. After finishing crashing the party, you move to the next safe room not too far after. The second level starts on a path up to a busy street where neon signs light the road, and the infected are the patrons of the establishments. A bar nearby leads to a sinkhole under construction. After you move through another bar, you climb the fire escape to the next building, bringing you back down to the street and into the jazz club that has a river tour under it? What? Anyway, you drop down the stairs to the river and open the gate as you run your way to the next gate, and the one after that to the safe room at the end of the tunnel. The finale starts off with the two groups meeting each other, but you only see 3 of the original survivors, and find out that Bill didn't make it. To get the bridge down, you have to get enough gas cans to fill it up. This finale has more gas cans than Dead Center, however you have Zoe, Lewis, and Francis to help you out when you're over by the generator. It's definitely tough, but never feels unfair. After getting the gas cans for the generator, they drop the bridge and you escape in the car. The passing is a campaign. I don't have any problems with it really, but it doesn't do much new or try to do anything out there gameplay wise. It plays it safe and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. It was pretty neat to fight alongside the original survivors and see the interactions between the two groups. I think thematically it does some cool stuff. The passing title has multiple meanings in this campaign. There's the literal passing of the bridge that you need to take. There's the passing referring to Bill dying, but also there's the more metaphorical passing, referring to the way of life from before that has passed by. There's a depressing feeling that you get as you make your way through the city, coming across bars, stores, jazz clubs, weddings, and even river tours that exist under them somehow, and see how they now sit empty or inhabited by the infected, and it's gonna stay that way. Streets, vehicles, and buildings sit in disrepair, and will always be that way with nobody to ever use them again. Coldstream was the third big DLC update of Left 4 Dead 2, the second being the Sacrifice that we went over in the last video that you should totally watch, dude. This campaign was actually a community creation that Valve ended up releasing as an official campaign on July 24th, 2012. Alongside the main campaign of the expansion, the original Left 4 Dead campaigns were ported too. If you were ever curious about what the campaigns from the first game would play like with a new special infected, weapons, and items, now you have the chance to. Also, as a part of this update, mutations were changed from a weekly rotating game mode to a mode where you could select between them at any time. There's a huge amount of content released with this update, so let's go through it. I'm just kidding.
Imagine a corporation incorporating fan-made content into the game instead of suing the creators into the ground.
I know, crazy that.
It's crazy.
Coldstream starts you off on a river next to a watchtower, which you move past to the bridge and through the cabin nearby. 2 fallen trees create a path to the hatch, which you have to balance across. You open the hatch and fight through a gauntlet of infected to get down to the safe room. The second level starts you off in the tunnel, with the blinding rays of sunlight and mudmen in the water to mess with your vision of the way forward before you find your tier 2 weapons. The stream brings you to a section by the road where a boulder is tossed at you, with a tank not coming too far after. When you move further along the road, you reach a barricade with explosive barrels that you need to shoot to get through. The rush to the end is dangerous, with the stream current able to drag you to your death if you're not careful. You move through the door and down the stairs to the next safe room. The third level takes place with you climbing out of the underground, arriving at a bridge with broken barricades and abandoned vehicles. The tanker truck explodes, clearing the way for you to climb down the scaffolding to the river below.
Fuck, dude.
Oh god.
Oh, it's the perfect.
Oh my god. I saw that. That was tragic.
Bro.
The river ends at a junkyard with a safe room at the end. You begin the finale nearby a warehouse building where you signal the military to pick you up at the end of the river. The garage door opens and you start running. You jump down to the stream, fight a tank, move down to the tunnel which brings you to the evac center. You climb up the tower and go up the helicopter ladder to rescue. Coldstream was a fun campaign. It was designed well and well paced. It overused the gauntlet events a bit here though. It felt a bit like difficulty through design was starting to be changed into difficulty through tons of enemies running at you in parts. It's a well done experience, especially when you consider that this was a community creation. It still manages to be up there side by side with the professional ones made by Valve and doesn't feel out of place at all. The Last Stand was released on September 24th, 2020, as a 4th DLC expansion of Left 4 Dead 2, over a decade after the game's initial release. Similar to Coldstream, this DLC was also a creation for the community by the community, and was advertised by Valve as such. The Last Stand update included a new campaign, 26 new survival maps, 4 new scavenge maps, new weapons, voice lines, animations, mutations, and balancing and UI changes. This is after a decade that they're still supporting the game. Just putting that out there. The Last Stand is a non-canon what-if campaign if the survivors took a different path through Death Toll than they did. I don't know why they didn't just set it between Death Toll and Dead Air, but you know what, whatever, man. Anyway, you start the campaign along a road in the woods and pick up your starting items before walking down to the river. You jaunt under the bridge and loot a rundown watermill, heading to a scrapyard and power the crane to clear a path. The generators shut off midway through, as you've probably come to expect at this point, having you restart them before moving forward, letting you drop the shipping container to get past the fence. This is such a well done crescendo event. It has multiple stages, objectives, and flows together really well, putting the team in a scenario where you have different roles. You can have somebody up top covering people going for the generators. You can have the guy turning them on. You can have the guy covering them on the ground in case they get grabbed. There's just a lot that the game gives you to play around with here. That's what a crescendo event should be. After escaping through the path you made, you come upon a forest fire where a plane crashed into the ground, moving through some cabins to a bridge to the safe room.
Get in here. I opened it. She fucking closed it, I swear to God.
Oh, okay.
I literally opened it for her and
Yeah,
like,
sure.
pushed
No.
her to the side. And
No,
then she fucking
and I'm
closed
saying
it
that I
again.
believe you.
The next level starts you off moving down the path to the watchtower before jumping down to the road to the lighthouse. You start the generator to signal rescue and fight through hordes until it runs out of gas.
Back controls. Oh, I'm dead.
He made it back up.
Bro, that was cool.
Luckily, there are gas cans around the map for you to fill it back up with. You bring the gas cans back to the generator and run down the cliffside where you fight 2 tanks before the ship arrives and you make it to safety.
There's a tank over there. Oh, he's climbing up the wall. Look at him go.
Bro,
Goddamn.
that's so fucking cool. Too bad he, Oh, shit!
This guy fucking melted. God damn. Too bad he fucking got. Jesus
Bro,
Christ.
before I could even finish the sentence, he fucked my shit up.
You're talking shit.
Yeah, dude.
Damn.
He wasn't taking none of that bullshit, bro.
The Last Stand is a short but sweet campaign, well balanced, puts multiple kinds of crescendo events and finale types into the encounters, and just feels really unique. Especially for using the same palette of colors as Blood Harvest and Death Toll, it still manages to have its own feel that's different from everything else. It manages to perfectly merge the styles of Left 4 Dead 1 and Left 4 Dead 2, as well as merging Valve's game design with community game design, showcasing the players how Valve wouldn't be able to keep this game going without the community there to support it. There's just something super awesome about a company basically passing off the game to the community, supporting and thanking the people that are most dedicated and putting their creations in the spotlight. Very few companies embrace the community of a game like Valve does. How many other companies out there exist that see community creations, release them as DLC, advertise it as being from the community, and do this not once, but twice? Valve realizes that it's not flashy design, marketing buzzwords, calling their game quadruple A, or any of that bullshit that makes a game. It's a community made from the designers that put passion into what they were working on. This brings us to the Steam Workshop. Valve puts community creations front and center. You have all kinds of community creations, from survival maps, to campaigns, to UI and AI improvements, to skins. There are all kinds of things for you to play around with from the community and never run out of content. Do you want to tweak the skins and sounds? You can do that. Do you want to play as the Velociraptor squad and fight the swole noob tank? You can do that too. Do you want to craft the ultimate Gooner experience? Yeah, you can do that. Did I download all these mods so that I could create this clip? Yes. Am I proud of it? It's always fun to check back every week and see what the community has come up with while you were gone and what's making waves at the moment. You never know if it's going to be something awesome or the most cursed thing you've ever seen. It also helps you appreciate the original design more. There have been so many times where I've downloaded a mod thinking it would be cool to have, but then ended up just opting for vanilla textures, sounds, and animations. It makes you realize how much intentionality went into every crunch, gib, shot, and sound in the original design. This isn't to say all mods are garbage compared to the original game. There are so many fun and creative mods that sometimes I find the game hard to play without. What I am saying is that every part of this game's design was made with purpose. They designed Left 4 Dead 2 to be something that would last, that would be beloved by the community, and that they were proud themselves to have worked on. When you make a sequel, it's gonna be hard to make everyone happy, since there's always the first game to compare it to. Left 4 Dead 2 is not short of things to say about certain aspects of the gameplay. Going from the first game to the second, there's definitely significant tone change. The game goes from something dark and gloomy to taking place in the bright, deep south and not taking itself very seriously at all. Some could say that it betrayed a bit what the original game was going for, but you could also make that criticism both ways. Some could say that the gloomy atmosphere didn't lend itself to creative level design, as evidenced by the first game becoming pretty repetitive and having environments that weren't super distinct from each other. But to that, you could also say that Swamp Fever also had the same problem, and The Last Stand clearly showed that you can have the atmosphere of the first game while having creative level design. You could go back and forth through these arguments for a long time. This is all to say you just can't please everyone. Next up was the hit detection of some of the melee weapons. While most of the weapons felt really good to use, some of them, namely the crowbar and especially the pitchfork, have such bad hitboxes they are not worth using unless you hate yourself. With the release of Mutation, some of the achievements that you would get in the game became devalued a bit. Before, Still Something to Prove was an impressive achievement to have, beating all the campaigns on Expert, but then it became possible to just turn on Gibfest and go through all the campaigns with a belt gun that had infinite ammo, which I definitely didn't use to get the achievement initially. That couldn't be me. This is more of a criticism from the modern day, but the engine. As you download mods, sometimes it can be hard for the engine to keep up with the increase in particle effects and textures, and it just crashes. This isn't an issue for the vanilla game at all, but it's still worth mentioning. Finally, the more hard-hitting stuff. Sometimes as the gameplay gets more and more optimized by the player base, designers work to compensate for that, and that compensation can sometimes lend itself to not being really that fun. I have this feeling about the Gauntlet sections of the game, where creative level design is just replaced with a long hallway and constant hordes spawning on you. I get that they wanted to create that epic feeling of fighting through the horde like in the Parish, however, in that finale the threats were spaced out with what felt like a lot more intention. It just feels like lazy design, and they even went back to Left 4 Dead 1 campaigns and added gauntlets there. Why? Why was this needed? It would be better if the AI was able to keep up during these sections, but they can't use throwables, or melee weapons, or even be nearby you when you're rushing. These sections are frustrating, and yes, I understand that it's a multiplayer game and that players would solve some of the issues, but the AI is a part of the game that they added in, and it's not above criticism. Left 4 Dead 2 is a game that can't be forgotten. It doesn't let itself be forgotten. Every element of it is brimming with passion and personality. From the weapons, to the sounds, to the music, and the enemies and the level design, every element of this game was crafted to last and be replayed over and over again. Even watching the gameplay back, I'm still tempted to stop working on this video and go back to play some more. It's just the perfect multiplayer zombie experience. You don't need any initial investment or grinding or online lore recap so that you can know what's going on. You just need $10 in the squad. Yeah, that's right, this game is $10, and that's when it's not on sale. The devs took everything that the fans loved from the first game, made some changes, and took you for the ride that is Left 4 Dead 2. Because at the end of the day, that's what this game is all about. You. The community. This was a game that they didn't make to walk away from. They made it as something to give to you, and check back every once in a while to see if you were doing alright. So what makes a sequel? Something new? Something old? I don't know, man. Just make something cool.